Ready when you are. I am recording.
And we are live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon,
And I'm Nathan.
and today we have another very special episode. We have the 2015 movie Green Room, directed by Jeremy Saulnier.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Saulnier, I'm not sure. I mean, he's from America, so.
Saulner.
Saulnier, yeah, that's it.
um, which I guess maybe we could have done his previous movie, but we'll skip over. He did. Apparently, he made a big indie hit called. Well, I'm not sure how big it was, but it was called Blue Ruin, and this
Yeah.
was his follow up was Green Room. But he says he didn't mean that for that to happen, so he doesn't have like a color trilogy out there or anything like that. So
I've seen them both. I've seen all his. Well, I haven't seen Murder Party.
okay,
I've seen Blue Ruin, Green Room, and Hold the Dark.
yeah, that was his latest movie.
He didn't write that. He just directed it, which it's also a weird movie. I mean, it's all in the same vein
Yeah,
of
Hold the
like,
Dark's a Netflix movie, but I hear good things about it. So
yeah. And he also directed some episodes of True Detective.
which the that would have to have been season 2, right? Or which one? Which one's the lead there?
2019, which was season one. Is that 2019? No, that was season three.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the one with
Season 2 is the one that everybody hates, and you said season 3 is pretty good as a
yeah,
not necessarily a return to form, but at least it's not season 2. Although there's things I like about season 2, but it's season 1's a masterpiece, so it's hard to compare.
yeah, it's really hard to make that work.
So yeah, he's a relatively, I guess, relatively a new director, but yeah,
He seems to have a style. Once I realized like this was the guy who did Hold the Dark and Blue Ruin, it's like, oh, okay, so I can, because I've never seen this movie before last night, but it's like I already felt like, oh, I have some familiarity, and it's like kind of what I thought it was going to be.
well, we're in our green section. It doesn't necessarily have to be organized like that. I remember the Red Letter Media guys liking this movie. And
Oh,
because I forgot what they said about it, it was like, good, let's go. I don't remember their opinions about it, so we can talk about it. um, but, they always appreciate, like, small indie stuff that's, violent and weird, so that's kind of their thing. So, of course, they would like it. So,
yeah,
um, although, I just threw this on here, like, Green Room, but, like, our previous ones, our previous movies were both food titles, Soylent Green and Fried Green Tomatoes, and both featured cannibalism. None featured here, so.
yeah. I mean, well, yeah, not that we know of. For the violence that was in this movie, it's like, yeah, people started eating each other. It'd be like, yeah, okay.
I mean, it's basically a zombie movies, but you replace zombies with skinheads. So.
Yeah. This is kind of like, this sort of reminded me in a way of like the old Sam Peckinpah films
Yeah.
and kind
Well,
of their style. It's like there's lots of violence, but nobody's necessarily good at it. So it's almost incidental violence. It's like
yeah.
there's some people in here you can tell have thought of violence or maybe committed some violence, but they're not great at it. So it's like it's really bloody because it's people are screwing up and making
Yeah.
mistakes. And it's like, oh, okay. Because everyone's not just born to start killing people. No one's an
No.
expert at that. So that's why I consider this. This reminded me a little bit of Straw Dogs, which I guess this was inspired by another European film, like a French movie. Um, which one was it? Oh, I had some notes here. But anyway, go ahead. Let's describe it.
First release May 13th, 2016, but it was a 2015 movie because they got rolled out on the, like, what do you call that? Film circuit? Like, film
Mhm.
festival circuit for like a year.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's an A24 film, but I'm not sure if they just picked it up. Like, A24 back then was kind of just like a new kind of indie company, but now they're kind of a prestigious film company where it's like, if you want something interesting, weird, and or challenging, like look for A24 because they got a lot of those movies, and they've been fairly successful. So their movies have generally, their catalog is kind of, their budgets have inflated with their own success, but they're not, they're not Disney or anything like that. But anyways, yeah, if you want weird stuff, like what's on the A24 docket, because not all their stuff is just like, hey, we're releasing it in theaters. It's all over the place. It's like here it's on the festival circuit, or here it's on demand somewhere. But
Yeah.
so yeah, still a relatively small company. They also branch out into video games and stuff too, just for that.
Oh, really? Okay. Huh.
It was like that. What's that? It was like, I can't remember what Annapurna is. I can't remember if they're like a distributor or if that was a video game first. But if for some reason in my mind, Annapurna and A24 are kind of like butting heads in the same area of like acclaimed indie dramas. So yeah, director is Joel Saulnier, cinematographer is Sean Porter, who probably his only other known movie he shot was Green Book, which I don't think we'll be doing. Because I hear it's one of those movies like, here's a racial relation movie that's actually bad. So it's like, all right, let's skip that.
Yeah, let's not dive into that.
It's like it won Oscars because that's what that kind of movie is designed to do, not because it's good. Written by Joel Saulnier, which he seems to write a lot of his stuff. Like you said, Hold the Dark, he didn't write that. I think he's right. He has listed, what is listed for his next movie? Which it says it's in post-production, so it's called Rebel Ridge. He wrote and directed it. It's described as a high-velocity thriller that explores systemic American injustices through bone-breaking action sequences, suspense, and dark humor. So, no idea what that's going to be.
Yeah.
Starring Anna Sophia Robb. Don't know who she is. James Cromwell, Don Johnson, James Badge Dale.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, I guess look for that somewhere.
Yeah.
Stars Anton Yelchin, which is what was his last released movie after his death.
Oh, okay.
Imogen Poots, bad name. I don't know her from anything really, but I always remember
28 weeks later, she was the sister.
Oh yeah,
because she has very interesting eyes. Like the camera likes her eyes.
Yeah, I guess.
It does it in this too. It's just like she has that look to her.
Well, that's what I was talking about Greed Factor. I was like looking up what she did, and that's where I discovered Vivarium. I was like, what the hell is this movie? And then Aaliyah Shawkat, which I most know her from Arrested Development and Search Party, but she does a bunch of different stuff. So
Okay.
And I guess originally her role was a male role, but then he decided to open up like, well, anybody can do this role. So he liked what she did with it. So that's how she got the role. So yeah, do you have any history with this movie, or is this the first time knowing and seeing?
Watched it last night was the first time. I knew like it was one of those movies that's like, oh yeah, Patrick Stewart plays a really evil person. It's like, oh, that's interesting. That's not you normal Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And then I just never followed up on it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss things. I miss a lot of things.
And what do you know about the concept of a green room? Like, do you know why it's called a green room? It's just like a waiting area for performers, isn't it?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's like it's before you go on like a show. It's like a place where there's refreshments and a place to relax and be left alone and kind of get ready for whatever performance or talk show or whatever you're getting to go on. That's all I understand of it.
Yeah.
And they're not all painted green either.
Yeah, I meant to look that up. It's like, why is it called a green room? But I don't know. So yeah, that'd be helpful to know if you at least know that. It's like a waiting area for performers. So
yeah.
Which is great in this movie because like I don't even think anybody like calls it the green room. You just have to know it's like, oh, that's the green room, and it's the room they often return to. like you would in a zombie movie.
Yeah.
When you don't have a budget and you only have two sets, outside and inside. I actually don't know the budget for this movie. It might have been like a high budget concerning.
5 million.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's not basically nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, and in 2016 bucks, it's not a lot of money.
Although there was a great quote from the director. He said like the reason he didn't necessarily take offers because I guess Blue Room was a success. That he had some Hollywood offers come in, but he wanted to make like kind of a gritty. Because I guess Blue Ruin's a bit more like sarcastic and funny than this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, this movie's a little mean.
And so he thought he wanted to make this movie as quickly as he could before people found out he was a fraud. It's like, well, I'll never get this chance again. So, so we open on a sleeping Anton Yelchin. His character's name is just Pat. And then we have the great reveal: the van that has run into a cornfield, although it hasn't. But it looks like, oh, is this an accident? But no, it's not. It's just like the band pulled over in a cornfield for the hell of it, or the guy fell asleep at the wheel and decided to just park the van and go to sleep.
No, he fell asleep at the wheel and the van just rolled into a cornfield.
Oh, okay.
So they were completely out of fuel because it was an idle, or the engine was just running the whole night.
Oh, okay.
That's why they had to ride a bicycle to go siphon gas out of the car in the parking lot.
Ali Shawkat, she's here with Sam. She checks her phone, and so the van's battery's working, but yeah, they're out of gas. So Sam and Pat go into town to siphon gas from people's cars, which is funny. It's like all the equipment in the van, like one of the necessary ones is like, well, we need a bicycle and we need a gas siphoning kit. So
yep.
It's essential to our survival. Especially when you're making like $350 at a gig, and that's your good gig. Like your bad gig, you're making $6 amongst 4 people.
Yeah, you're playing at like the Denny's lunch cafe or something weird like that. Yeah.
They go back to the van and they get it going and they get it back on the road. Or like they kind of push it out, but I'm guessing that's just more because it's stuck, not necessarily because they're trying to like start it in any way. So they get into town. They get keys to an apartment from some like punk reporter kid or something. I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, he's basically a reporter, and yeah, he's writing like an underground newspaper or something.
Or he's just like or
and
he's also like he's in college, maybe.
Yeah, he's like a radio guy, and he's doing an underground articles, and he's doing interviews for a paper, and he knows a lot of people.
Yeah.
This is all set in the Pacific Northwest, which is an area I've never been and not familiar with. Because it's like this is outside of Portland, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, that's where it's filmed, so, but, your closest recollection would be, for, that's in Washington State, but for Twin Peaks,
yeah.
Anytime you're out in that area, you just apply a magical realism to everything. It's like, oh, anything can happen here.
Well, it's very green there. I know that because it rains constantly, but they don't have the desert climate like in California or Southern California. So it's like, oh, everything's bright green there all the time because it rains constantly and everyone's really super depressed. And I don't even really think they have winter there, or at least not like we do. I mean, they have a lot of evergreen.
I imagine they would, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't never hear about like, oh, it's like, hellish winter in Portland. I don't know, maybe they do.
Like a lot of the trees are like pine trees, or is that what evergreen tree is? Like the ones that that never shed. So it just always looks green because the trees don't shed or have whatever process they do instead. I don't know the life cycle of a pine tree. Forgive me.
Yeah, it has it's like deciduous and non-deciduous tree. Yeah, who knows? Yeah. I know they explode if they get really hot. I know like the sap in pine is way more reactive than the sap in like an oak tree, because you can make like you can melt pine down and make it into like a kind of medieval napalm. pine pitch. It's like, oh, this sounds nasty because it sticks and it's a chemical fire, so it doesn't burn. But yeah, in forests fires, the pine trees explode. They also explode in winter if they freeze solid through.
Huh.
The pine sap will suddenly start to super expand as it freezes, and the tree is like boom. It sounds like a gun. It's like really weird.
Huh.
Never seen it happen, but that's what they tell me. So
You can make a whole movie based on that.
the exploding trees of Portland.
Or it's like a one aspect of a new Blair Witch project. It's like, what was that explosion? It's like, it's ice cold out here. The maple, the pines are exploding because the sap is expanding. Yeah. So the punk interviewer guy gives him like keys to an apartment. I like that they like start playing a record and then they just cut to it being done and then like we're at the next day. Yep. This movie's very swift. It's only an hour and a half long, so but they get
it's not a lot. There's like 3 hours of weird shit going on.
The punk guy comes back to interview the band, which I don't know. He doesn't seem like. I think he mentions at college and was like, "Oh, that makes sense," because he seems like a bad interviewer because he seems like he just asks standard questions. I'm like, wait, aren't you supposed to be like an alternative magazine that's really supposed to drill down to like the essence of the thing? And he's asking like, what's your desert island bands? And it's like, what kind of question is that?
I would immediately be annoyed, especially people that are into punk. Like I don't know much about that and that genre of music, but I know people around here that are into it, and it's like, yeah, those people would like tear you apart asking. Like, but I think that was kind of the point. Was this guy was a little naive and out of his league?
Yeah, and it sets up a long running kind of gag throughout the movie. So
yeah.
Also, makes him unlikable. So, and he becomes further unlikable, even though he himself isn't a bad person. He just inevitably screws them over.
He's just he's someone out of his depth. He's what they would call a poser or something. It's like someone really committed to this.
Yeah. But through questioning like this is where you find out that this band's really eccentric because it's supposed to be modern times, but they don't have an online presence, which is like, hey, why is that? And they're like, Pat basically says that like that would ruin their essence. Like, a live performance is a live performance and it ends there and dwindles away. You like, otherwise you have to keep that energy up all the time, and that would just be self-defeating or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of residuals in that though.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of the joke. I mean, I think they really set that up so it's like, well, no one's going to miss these guys if something happens.
Yeah.
Putting it on Facebook, hey, meet us at the woodsy neo-Nazi retreat. We want to hang out with the pine Nazis or whatever they are.
Yeah, that's basically just the conceit of it. It's like, well, we got to put them in a situation where a phone can't solve everything. Even though they do have phones, they're just taken away. But they just say they're not on social media, so there isn't like this question of like, hey, what happened to the band? It's like, no. The thing is that nobody knows who we are, and that's a good thing somehow. But also they're siphoning gas, so they probably don't want too much attention, being that they pretty much have to commit crimes to keep their band going.
Yeah, they're living on the fringes of. They're a fringe group living on the fringes of even that.
And also, I believe they're like DC natives, which is practically a mecca for like punk rock and stuff like that. But I think that's where like Minor Threat is from, because that's Patton Oswalt talks about them all the time, and he's from that area too.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's like Minor Threat and is it Bad Brains or what is something like that?
There's some of them. Like I said, that's a genre of music I am not super familiar with.
Yeah.
You just know the big stuff. It's like that you see in movies. I've never really invested. Like I said, I'm more of a prog rock guy than I am that. But
well, it's like, who's the biggest punk band ever? And you probably would have to say like Green Day, but they're so mainstream. You'd be like, that's not a punk band. It's like, you can't be punk if you're mainstream. That's the idea of punk.
Yeah.
Is that it's like a quiet secret we all hold.
Yeah, it's more in you. Some of it's like really in your face.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, screw the system, screw you, man, that kind of stuff. I'm more like a Nero's fiddle guy. It's like, well, no, I want to watch it all burn, but like calmly from a distance. Not, I don't want to be like thrashing around in the streets.
And also, like, there's a lot of British punks too. That, like, I don't know which started first. Like, I imagine it'd be British punk, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it's a genre I really don't know much about, but it works in this movie because it's just interesting. Like, yeah, who are these people and what are they doing? Because I knew there's neo Nazis and I knew that there were punks, but I never really thought that they crossed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, wait, they do, because I remember this, and that now, which was like, oh wow, this is weird.
Yeah, they basically like the same music, but it's like, no, we're not about that. I'm like, but we are. It's like, because basically they're singing, like, they're singing about like fight the system and all that stuff like that. Like, they're like, yeah, fight the system. It's like, no, not that system.
Yeah, not the same system.
We want to get rid of normality, not like create a new normal.
Yeah, we don't want to just unleash horror on the world. We want to, like, mitigate we want more of a wild and chaotic blend of things going on. We just don't want to like kill certain groups of people. Like that's something totally different.
Also, here's where the band learns that they lost their gig and they have to settle for like a noon gig at a diner. So which I guess the director, I read some of the trivia, and I guess the director used to be in a punk band or something. And he said that was basically him recreating a gig he had to do.
Oh yeah, it seemed to have an air of authenticity to it.
Yeah,
I know I did hear the director kind of insisted that the stars in the band like learn to play music together and sing certain songs and stuff, so like they could create a kind of a believable band.
Yeah. Well, all the performances in the movie, they're not dubbed or anything like that. It's just the actors are the band. So
yeah, with punk you can get away with that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, he's not playing right. It's like, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not doing math guitar in this or anything. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, like a lot of punk is just going 1, 2, 3, 4 and just banging on your instruments and yelling loudly, which that's why people disregard it a lot of time, is because sometimes that's what people are doing, and sometimes there's a nuance to it, and it's hard to tell.
Oh, there's a new. I mean, I've listened to some of that music. Some of the like lyrics and stuff are clever and amazing, and very, very acutely anti-establishment in a fun way. It's like some of that music can really carry you into fight the system. But then you realize, like, well, it's not just about singing songs. You got to like carry out a plan and stuff, and that's when it gets all boring and depressing. That's when it becomes like a job.
I mean, there's like even further subdivisions where it's like the straight edge stuff too, where it's like we're punk rock, but no drugs and alcohol, and they're like, well, how does that work? And it's like, we're fighting the system with a clear mind, guys.
Yeah, we're fighting to be sober, which is the saddest fight.
You have to live that fight. You can't dream that fight.
Yeah.
So like I wrote the singer, but I think there's actually Reese, the drummer, who knocks the punk guy against the wall. Because he hands him like $6 after like the take at the diner. Which I guess that was $6 for all of them, so not necessarily just
$6 split 4 ways. Like,
$6 for okay, yeah. Okay.
Well, here's some little things I liked about this that I could appreciate about like living in weird areas and living out of your van. Is before the show when the guys go into the apartment. What is it? It's the guy. I'm just gonna call him the guy who does the interview. Yeah. He tells them like where to park and park your van with the back against the wall so no one can break into your van and steal all your shit. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's a nice little touch, because I've actually been in places where they say like, park the van so they can't get the doors open. It's like, well, this is a nice place. In that case, it was a U-Haul and it was something different. But I was like, oh, I've actually like I've been to, and I know like Portland has it. What's their big thing there? Heroin. Like they just got a bunch of junkies running around there because of the heroin addiction. Well, that's probably everywhere now,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
at one time they were infamous for that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, Portland. I mean, there's a whole television series about how weird Portland is.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like, you know, it's Portlandia if you don't know, and it's supposed to be
Oh
like,
yeah.
and it's supposed to be like, oh, this is ridiculous, and then like you go to Portland, it's like, oh, this. They weren't even like trying to be funny.
Yeah.
They were just like recreating a documentary of Portland.
Oh, this was interesting farce. And then you show up like, no, what?
Of course, the weird like kind of feature I know about Portland is that like they made a lot of city ordinances, so like things that happened in very like in Atlanta and Detroit, where it's just like they just keep it just keeps growing outwards, and then like the inner city dies.
Yeah.
So they make it so that like basically at some radius you can no longer build a building that's more than like 3 stories tall. So it keeps everything in the middle of the city. And you just
Oh,
have to repurpose what's there. Or you
it's
if you
like
want
reverse Washington D.C.
yeah. So yeah, there's like so it's like basically like at some point like you can just see Portland like in the distance because there's nothing in your way. um so that's why it makes it extra weird because people have to like, well, we have well, this shirt factory closed down, what are we gonna do with it? Like, I don't know, turn it into housing.
Yeah. Just build an internal like lattice structure and put apartments in there. But use the elevator that was a freight elevator for like whatever fabric they were weaving. People have to ride that up and down, and and wave the variant so it doesn't have doors on the front or the back of it. And then people are like, well, this is quirky. It's like, yeah, you can't do this anywhere else in the United States. The only place this is allowed.
But also presumably you could just like, well, we're in the city, we want to build a giant skyscraper. Apparently I think that would be allowed, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not sure. I just heard that interesting thing about on podcasts from people that moved there, and that's where like I found out this weird thing about Portland, so which is kind of everything. But
Yeah, I think there was some concept of like trying to reinvigorate Detroit with with things like that.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
go into these old buildings and do all this kooky stuff, but I think after a while it gets really depressing because the city of Detroit is not run by like liberal, progressive, forward thinking people. It's still run by criminals. And they're like, yeah, come into our clutches. And then you find out like they will tax your business to death and like there's zero city services, Cerny. It's like, yeah, you're on your own. It's like, well, where's RoboCop? He's like, that's not real. That's so
and you don't want that.
yeah, and you really actually don't want that. But yeah, that's kind of the sad part of it. Like they make it seem like, oh, it can be this quirky bohemian thing. It's like, no, the people in charge are still the same people in charge. It's just because one of them gets indicted doesn't mean the rest of them go away. They're all still there. So, oh, so yeah, it's like, no, we couldn't turn this into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Sorry.
So yeah, the Reese knocks the punk guy against the wall, like it's like about to beat the crap out of him, but then he says, "Hey, I got you a gig around Portland," and he's like saying like, "What's going on there?" I was like, "Well, the crowd's probably going to be right wing." Like, how right wing? It's like, it's not too bad. Just don't talk.
What does he call them? Like straps and something. There's a term he uses.
Oh yeah. I can't remember. Yeah.
What is it? Like stripes and straps, or I don't know. Yeah. It sounded like very like, oh, those are Nazis you're talking about. Like you knew as soon as you heard it. It's like, oh, these people that march in a certain circle or whatever. Yeah, that crew in America, where most people are, not of like pure ancestry. Like, yeah, we're into the Nazis. It's like, yeah, that's weird. Good luck with that. That the Aryan Italians or the Irish Aryans. It's like, what? Thought of you people, right? It's like the people of the British Isles he considered a mongrel race, inferior in Germans in both, or inferior to Aryans in both thought and physique. So yeah, like all these people with like British and Irish, ancestry that are in America now getting into the Nazis. It's like, yeah, wrong crew, man. Might as well just go join Sinn Fein. It's like they'll have you.
What's that?
It's the political. Well, it's essentially the political arm of the IRA. They always said they were.
Okay.
But that's Jerry Adams ran it.
We cut to night. They're driving to the gig. They have a flyer. I think it's from the previous gig because the punk guy drew it, and they thought it was a pretty cool poster of like. I don't know, it's the name of the band's called the Ain't Rights.
Yeah.
And it's like this picture of like some like it's like a cartoon picture of a lady with a knife who like carved out guts from somebody, and in the guts is Ain't Right spelled Ain't Right. So it's like
weird foreshadowing. Cool.
It also says like it says Ain't Right, and then below it says DC Freaks. So I'm not sure if that was like they were the headliners and that was like one of the openers, or if that's like a part of the band name, or if that's describing who they are. It's like they Ain't Rights. They're a part of the DC Freaks crew or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I just assumed they were just the Ain't Rights, and it was the DC
Freaks.
Was like the nom de guerre of the whole thing.
Okay. Because I almost like I forget what is that Dead Kennedys where it's like the star symbols and it has like one. It's basically
it's
a star
like DK, but it looks like one of the girls is wearing a Dead Kennedys t-shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember it's like, what is that t-shirt? Because I've seen it all the time, and I don't know what it belongs to. It's like, oh yeah, it's Dead Kennedys, which is also a pop or a punk band, right?
Yeah.
They're like one of the most famous ones because they sold all those t-shirts, and that's why you know of them, but you never heard of them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like everyone has the shirt, and it's like, hey, you ever listen to the music? It's like kind of interesting. We know Jello Biafra from a lot of like he did crossover stuff with Ministry and stuff. He was the lead singer for the Dead Kennedys, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Because that song they sing. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
So I have it being in Act 1 because here's the band. They got a gig somewhere that they're kind of unsure about. So
yep.
We have Act 2. It's they have like a campfire at night. Then we cut to day, and it's just shot of the forest. The band pulls up to the gig. It's like in the middle of the woods with like construction equipment and shipping containers.
Yeah,
I've seen places like this before, which I don't know. I guess they like in reality it was just like, hey, can you build us this thing? Like this place kind of looks cool, and so they just kind of made it look like it was a club when it wasn't, because the inside is just a set, so the outside can just look like anything.
Yeah,
but there are places
dress a barn to make.
But there are places like this where it's just like somebody had a dream for a nightclub, but they didn't have the money or the skill, and they just threw one together, and it becomes like
woods.
Yeah, and it just becomes this quirky, eclectic place that, like, not people. It doesn't drive a lot of people to it, but the people that go, like, it's it does enough for them to get by, I guess. Or you'll have like those weird like, here's a big band that does stadiums, and all of a sudden like they do the show in a barn somewhere in like North Dakota. It's like, wait, what's this place and why are they doing this? And it's like, to make their fans second guess them. Like, we could show up anywhere, but really this is the only weird gig we're ever going to do.
Well, another way this movie builds tension too that I liked is like the time when they're like around the campfire, and then when they're driving into the woods of the Pacific Northwest. It's a very like kind of wide shot and like slow tone music playing the whole time, which is completely in contrast to everything else that's gone on to this point. And so it like does build. It's like, oh, you're afraid of this place before they even pull in.
They're entering something they shouldn't be.
Yes.
Even though like it looks lush and green, but the ominous music tells you like this is going to go bad.
Yeah.
So they meet the cousin of the punk guy. This I think is Daniel, and so they immediately get off to a bad start. I forget, he says something, but I don't know how he knows it because he's like they shouldn't know each other. But he mentions something about a girl, and then like he like pushes him up against the car. He's like, "Hey man, don't say that."
Well, yeah, because the reporter is in some relationship with a girl that they both know.
Yeah.
And he's like, he acknowledges like, oh yeah, he's told us about that, and this guy immediately flips out like, yeah, basically like, picks him up or throws him against the wall, holding him by his neck, which is like, well, you know what, time to go. I don't need 300. Fuck you. But
And so, but they get brought into the place. The manager brings them into the green room. This is Gabe. I think I write his name later. And so, of course, as we find out, oh yeah, the green room has Nazi symbols and white power stuff all over it. So yeah, they're absolutely in the wrong place that they don't want to be. When the guy told them, it's like, it'll be okay. Just don't talk about politics. It's like, no, we're absolutely in the wrong place. But they just go with it.
yeah.
To the point that they go out and they play a song called Nazi Punks Fuck Them, which is a Dead Kennedys cover, to the hate of the crowd.
Actually, it's no. What is it? Let me find it here. Yeah, Nazi punks fuck off.
Oh, fuck off. Okay.
Yeah. Which I know, like, because that's when Jello Biafra was in with the Dead Kennedys before he left. Because I know that he redid it. I was like 2 years into the Trump administration. It was called Nazi Trumps fuck off. So yeah, he revisited it.
Yeah, this song is evergreen, just like the forest they're in.
Yeah. So yeah, that was like and I like it's funny how as they're playing it, like the band's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done this. Like maybe they're not going to get the irony of this.
Well, it's only Pat really has the weird because they show Pat like noticing some ladies passing a note around, which really at this moment in the movie, like you can't suspect anything that's going on, but how it's shot, it lets you know like this is something important and something weird is happening. Only Pat knows about it.
Yeah,
because the rest of the band is like they're just enjoying like we're fighting this system too. Because like the crowd's with them at first because they say Nazi punks and they're like yeah, and then it's like fuck them and they're like no. They toss some beer bottles and spit at them, but they hang around because they when they play the rest of their set, essentially like these guys enjoy the rest of their set enough to do their little Nazi circle mosh pit thing. So
yeah.
So then they're walking back to the green room. They're drinking and they get paid, and then they get kicked out for the headliner, which is Cowcatcher, which is just a Nazi punk band. So
there's actually a name for that. Because I had it up here because I was immediately like, this is weird. They're called NSBM, National Socialist Black Metal. Didn't know that was a thing.
Huh.
So that's like the genre that the fictional band Cowcatcher would be playing under.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Not black as in like the race, just black metal as in harder core metal. Okay.
Yeah, there's all kinds of genres that like, because there's like dark metal, death metal. There's all that Norwegian stuff and Scandinavian stuff, and it's like all these things sort of run together.
Yeah.
But they don't blend, and they're not all the same thing. But they seem to. I don't know. It's just a kind of a weird thing. It's basically where people get on the microphone are like, kind of stuff, and they're just saying like racist stuff. I guess.
Yeah. If you mumble it loudly into a microphone, like it's basically a dog whistle. So
yeah.
I remember I came up with a band name in high school called Cadillacs, but it would be cattle as in cows and then axe, but it sounds like the plural form of Cadillacs the car. But that would be for like some metal band, and I wasn't really into metal. I mean, I like metal, but it's like if I were making music, I wouldn't necessarily make metal music. So yeah, they get kicked out of there. Like they're like, yeah, grab all your crap, because they put all the stuff out in the hallway, and they also mentioned like, hey, you need to pick that up because it's a fire hazard. Like the owners are real stickler about that. But Sam left her phone in the green room, so Pat goes in to go get the phone. He grabs the phone, and then basically as he's leaving, he realizes like, oh, there's a lady stabbed in the head and laying on the ground. In which this becomes immediately weird. And Cowcatcher's in there, and they did the deed, and so he's trying to call the police, but then the band got taken hostage, and they take their phone away. But like they cut off the police call, and the manager's pretty calm about this because they don't make it like immediately like a horror movie where like they're gonna start killing them now. It becomes this like weird thing where it's like, all right, well, this situation's weird, but we're going to be kind of calm about it and energetic about it at the same time.
Yeah,
And
we're
then
going to be weirdly charismatic.
and then you hear like, and then the manager gets on the phone. Gabe, he's played by Macon Blair, who I don't know if you know him from stuff, but he was like the main actor in Blue Ruin.
Yeah, he was the main guy in Blue Ruin, the homeless guy.
And so here you hear him call the police call back. He answers the phone and he reports a stabbing, which is what's going on. It's like, oh wow, they're just gonna like, how's this gonna work out? And it's like, it's gonna work out a really weird and interesting way. Because as far as they know, it's like, okay, the police know there's a stabbing, everything's fine. Let's see. But yeah, I think there's a line when he hangs up and he's talking to somebody else, and it makes it seem like, oh, the cops are on their side, and that's how they're going to get away with it. But no, the cops aren't on their side. Oh yeah, and then we cut to like there's a scene where Sam is like trying to bargain about like, well, maybe she isn't dead, you know. So there's some weird things that happen, and then like, it's Worm is the lead singer of Cowcatcher that stabbed her. He just grabs the knife that's stuck in this lady's head and just like kind of like pulls her, drags her body around. It's like, yep, she's dead. And it's like, well, maybe, you know, there's not a lot of blood there. And then he pulls the knife out and then just pours blood all over the place. And so he just okay, no more bargaining. This lady's dead. Which I guess the director said that like that was an image from like some well, I guess it wasn't images, probably just a story that a inmate told in some like prison documentary that he saw when he was a kid, and it was just burned in his mind, so he had to put that in a movie.
Oh, watching one of those scared straight movies.
Yeah. Then we cut to like the outside. We have Gabe. He gives like $600 to like two young skinhead punks, and like one stabs the other, and this is how they're covering up for the stabbing. It's like, the police are coming, our stabbing is reported, and here they present a new stabbing as the original stabbing. It's like, huh, okay, I guess that's interesting, weird, quick thinking. I don't know if this is going to play out, but let's see.
Well, this is like the interesting part two of the Patrick Stewart character, because he's like arranging some of this stuff like in the background.
Yeah.
Like you hear a voice over the phone, and then the one guy's like, look, the knife is under a certain length, so it's not a felony. It's only a misdemeanor. It's like, oh, these people are really familiar with violence in a certain way. They know like exactly what they're doing and how to make this seem, like it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the weird thing about this movie, but I guess it would be accurate to skinheads. Is like, in the movie, these guys are presented as professional criminals, but they're still a bunch of morons, even though some of them are professional criminals.
Yeah, that's the brilliance of the Patrick Stewart performance in this movie, because not only is he scary, but he has a plan. But he always has that vague way that only English people can do of sounding disappointed as each new problem comes up. He's like, oh, all right, look, we're going to have to do this. And this, like, he's vaguely flustered because he's surrounded by idiots.
Yeah.
And it's like no one's doing their job right. He's like, all right, look, we're going to have to do this now. And it's, can you please, only bring the guys with I want the red laces, which is like the hit squad. But he's always talking in this way. It's like, oh, can you just cretins just follow through with one thing, please?
Yeah, because he's just a manager. He doesn't execute any of these things. He just has like, technically that would be a good plan for what you're trying to do, but the guys you have executing it are morons.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of people you can convince to be in your cult of white.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like these guys aren't bankers; they're just people and I've never, like I said, I don't know neo-Nazi skinhead punks, but I've known like militia people before and talked to them, and it's like, yeah, it's all a one-track recording with these guys. It's all like the same stuff over and over again. They're not interesting, quirky people with a lot of cool ideas. It's like, yeah, at the end of the day, they're just people that they have like a one-track mind, and they have a very simple philosophy, and they don't want to think about anything else. And yeah, you don't get a lot of dynamic leadership and good ideas coming out of a crew like that. So yeah.
So I believe like I think I think this is like the cops show up in the background, and then also this is where Patrick Stewart, the owner, Darcy, shows up. But you don't see him. You see like his back, but you know like, okay, that's Darcy. But
Yeah, you've heard him on the phone a few times, I think.
yeah, which I don't think he's trying to do an accent, is he?
He's toning it down.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to do like I'm a British man who's lived in Portland for 20 years.
He's doing a Game of Thrones accent because everyone was generically British, but nobody had a specific regional British accent, especially the American actors and the Danish actors that were in Game of Thrones. Everyone's just kind of baseline British because that's what makes sense for sword and sorcery epics.
Yeah.
Because if everyone talked like they were from Wyoming, it would be kind of weird. Swinging a sword, what y'all gonna do now? That just doesn't work unless you're in Time Bandits or something. But yeah, so that's what Patrick Stewart was doing. He was also doing really low key because Patrick Stewart's one of those booming like Shakespeare actors, which like when he's angry, that's his like, oh, you know him from that. But he doesn't do that the whole movie. It's all kind of subdued.
Yeah.
So, because yeah, it would be weird for someone who's like starting a Nazi woods club, like a forest neo-Nazi club, but he sounded like he was straight out of like Southampton docks or something. Like, where's this guy fit in? Just fly over and parachute in. It's like, I'm here now. We're going to be Nazis. We could be like the disturbing guy in A Clockwork Orange. So you want to be neo-Nazis? Well, here we are. Be that kind of neo-Nazi. Like, wait, didn't they bomb the shit out of your cities and stuff? Hold on.
I mean, yeah, it's all like there's like because like neo-Nazi would be a specific thing, but also like white power would be a slightly different thing, and then a skinhead would also be a slightly different thing, but we all see them as the same thing because that's all they are, really. But
yeah, I mean, well, my thing is like, oh, if you want to be like I don't know, how would I do? If you're a Nazi as something as the National Socialist Party of Germany that existed from like 1932 until 1945, that's kind of when they dissolved as an effective political organization for reasons. Number one, they lost the war. Let's not forget. So when anyone says they're a Nazi and wants to put swastikas on thing, it's like, well, that didn't even last 12 years. I mean, what are you doing, man? They weren't that well organized. They weren't very good at what they did. They scared the hell out of everyone. But then everyone got together and like, yes, we all agree. We're going to shake hands with Stalin and kill these people. It's like, that's what happened. I don't know. Now, if you want to be into like mystical, like Scandinavian, like, Nordic culture or something. Okay, that's a little different. That doesn't have to be Nazi. But it's like when you're specifically saying you're Nazi, but it's like, no, this is my culture and heritage. It's like, number one, it's not. But okay, you're an American, but whatever. Cool, that's your heritage. Yeah, I get it. But it seems like you're identifying with a failed political philosophy that basically came to power because everyone was scared of the communists. And then once they took power, they screwed everything up for Germany. They ruined everything you didn't want to happen to Germany happened to Germany because the Nazis lost. The country got split in half. Half of it was communist. The rest of it was socialist. And it was now you have all the foreign peoples coming in and living there. So why would you want to be a Nazi? They failed completely 100%. But
yeah,
but see,
it's not about logic. It's like it's like I like the look of the uniforms.
Yeah, I like the swastika is cool, and the black and red's awesome, and leather, and
I'm just gonna work backwards from there. I'm not gonna make sense out of it.
Yeah,
which is absolutely childish thinking.
Yeah, it's really strange. That's why, because when I hear it, because I'm like so into history, I'm like, oh no, weird group to be a part of. And there were, yeah, and then it's like, well, there weren't any real good guys in World War II, and it's like, well, hold on, hold on, wait a minute, what do you
It
say?
might be the only war with good
Well,
guys.
explain that to me exactly. It's like, was everyone, was America like Captain America? Was it all truth, justice, and the American way that carried the day? No, it was mostly a lot of Russians dying in Eastern Europe that carried the day. Were the Russians good guys? No. Were the Americans and the British good guys? We weren't as bad as the Russians. We definitely weren't as bad as the Nazis. But yeah, I was like, did we just cover ourselves with glory, and were we perfect saints and angels throughout the whole thing in the post-war period? No. But were we as bad as anyone else? It's like, yeah, we weren't the worst.
Yeah.
That's the thing. With World War II, it wasn't like no one was good. It's like, no, we were the least worst.
Yeah.
And when people came home or they got wounded or whatever, we took care of them. If you like got captured in the Russians and they took you back, well, they just shot you or sent you to a gulag. It's like, okay, we weren't that. We weren't rounding people up here, and killing. I mean, we were rounding people up here, but that was, we didn't kill anyone directly. It wasn't the point of it, I would say. But yeah, it's like, yeah, we were the least, we were the least bad guys. Like us and the British, the least bad guys. But the neo-Nazis, like, if you really want to be a neo-Nazi punk, you should only be mad at Russians. Because they're the reason in the land battle, that's why you lost, essentially. But weirdly, it's like, oh, the neo-Nazis are all over Russia and Ukraine now. And it's like, there's swastikas everywhere there. It's like, wow, this is so weird. I mean, the Ukrainian thing, I get it, because they kind of saw the Nazis as liberators, because Stalin was worse than Hitler to them. So it's like, okay, I get it. But yeah, when I see modern day American kids that are like, I'm into neo-Nazism, it's like, oh, you just already lost. You've already picked the losing hand. But I get why the imagery and the meaning behind it is shocking and hateful. But yeah, I understand why it works on one level, but on the other hand, it's on a deeper level, it's just dumb.
So you have Gabe goes back with Big Justin, played by Eric Edelstein, who basically just looks like David Harbour and talks like him too.
I thought it was. Is this like a young David Harbour? It's like, no.
No.
Damn, does he look a lot like him?
I don't think there ever was a young David Harbour.
No, David Harbour was born at 42 years old.
Well, that's always the weird thing I thought about. Like, when I first saw him in Stranger Things, that's where I first saw him. But I saw him previously because he's in like the first season of Workaholics or whatever, as just like as a comic relief security guard for like 3 episodos. And that was it. And then he did Stranger Things, and he had a movie. And after that, now he has a movie career. It's like the strangest thing. Because now he's in shape, and he looks like he has more hair. It's like, it's like, huh? What a late career change for that guy.
Yeah, it's a magical. Yeah, he's just some guy from, I think he's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's a star. I think he did the funniest Mark Maron episode I've heard in a long time.
Oh yeah, I haven't listened. I have to listen.
Yeah, because he's real down to earth in a way. He's like, yeah, I'm just waiting to screw this up. Like the whole time they're talking about his success, and he goes, yeah, I know I'm gonna screw this up. I'm gonna make one too many bad movies, and it's like, hey, remember that guy from Stranger Things? Like, yeah.
Well, yeah, it wasn't great. People didn't blame him for it, but he was in like the new Hellboy movie, which I hear is terrible, but never actually watched it.
Yeah, it's when I see like 20% reviews, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to pay money for that.
But then he was in that new like Santa Claus Die Hard movie, which people seem to like, but I also hear it's like, well, it's not a good movie, but it gives you mostly what you want, so you know. There's so yeah, the skinheads let Cowcatcher go, but they keep the Ain't Rights there. And also I also like forgot this whole time because I almost thought like she was a part of the band when Amber shows up. I was just like, oh wait, who's that? I was like, oh yeah, she's part of the band. I'm like, oh wait, no, she's one of the girls that Pat saw, and like she's friends with the girl who got stabbed in the head. And it's like I didn't realize that till like maybe like a third, like 2/3 of the way into the movie.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's that point where like somebody calls her a skinhead, and it's like that's weird. They're calling one of their band members a skinhead. And it's like, oh wait, she's not part of the band.
She just insinuated herself into this group for
Which I
reasons
get.
of personal survival.
Well, I guess they shot it in a specific way where basically you don't see the Amber character like with a close up shot until
Yeah.
like way late into the movie. So even though she's there, she's only like in the corner of the screen the whole time until she like talks at one point and they give her a close up, and that's where it's like that's really her first introduction to the movie, which is pretty late in for a main character essentially.
That was just kind of interesting because yeah, she
Oh yeah.
turns out to be like the most crazy character in the movie
Yeah.
almost.
It's like, is she the bad guy? Well, she's the bad guy to the bad guys. She also does the craziest stuff. um, yeah, so I let Cowcatcher go, but here Cowcatcher or Worm, the lead singer, or maybe he's the lead singer, I'm not sure.
He's in the
Compliments,
band. I don't know what he does, but
yeah,
yeah.
he compliments the band and said like yeah, you guys rocked. And he's like, what was that second to last song you played? And he's like, Toxic Revolution. Is like, yeah, that's a song I did her to. So now basically now the band feels slightly responsible for the murder of this one. It's like, it doesn't matter what song you're playing, he was going to kill her anyways, but but
Yeah.
just
It's a way to insinuate, it's a way to manipulate people into like you're a part of my crime.
yeah, yeah.
No, I had no volition in it at all, but okay, cool. You're a sociopath. I get it.
So yeah, so Cowcatcher leaves, and then that's just the Ain't Rights and Amber and Big Justin in the room, and he holds a gun to him. Here they banter about like the big revolver, and like it's like, oh, well, yeah, we can rush him. And he's only got 6 shots, and he's like, he's only got, or what they say, he only got 6 bullets, and he's like, he
Yeah.
like corrects him like, no, it's cartridges, and it only has 5 cartridges because it's a big ass gun.
Yeah, he's basically implying it's like a 500 Smith or like a four what Kasul round was that 446
454 or something like that. Yeah,
454, yeah.
I think maybe. Yeah. I think the trivia. I didn't look up the Internet Movie Firearms database, but in Internet Movie database, somebody said it was just it was a Taurus Raging Bull. So I don't know. So it could
Yeah.
have been any size. Taurus loves to make guns that look fucking huge.
I mean, Taurus makes a revolver that shoots shotgun shells. It's
Yeah,
called Judge.
yeah.
You can shoot 410 shells or 44 or 45 long Colts out of
Yeah.
it. I had a Derringer that did that once. Hurt like a bastard to shoot.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's absolutely no recoiling device on it, so it's just all on your wrist.
Yeah, you are the recoil device, and there's not much to hold on to grip wise either. You're only holding on to it to there. But I'll tell you what, if somebody came up to you and you shot them with that at almost point blank range, it would be devastating, but be gross. I don't know if the 410s aren't. I wouldn't want to be shot in the face with one, but it's like a 12 gauge or something.
Then we cut to Darcy, Gabe, and like the skinhead crew are going over the band's van to see like how they can cover this up. And here's where they spot the siphon kit, and they think up plans. Like, oh, okay, they were trespassing and they were stealing gas, and so that's how they ended up dead. So that's
See, this is when I thought I decoded some foreshadowing in this movie.
Yeah,
Because they're siphoning gas. Siphoning gas kit is a part of the band's survival tools. And the owner of the club's really into fire codes, is like, oh, this will end in fire.
Oh yeah. That's
But,
that's what I thought too.
like, well, no, I guess not. But yeah, it was kind of weird.
There's it even goes all the way with it where it's like, did a gas tank just get shot there, and is it not going to explode? It's like, no, you're waiting for an explosion the whole movie, and it never happens.
Right.
Not even the drug den catches on fire or explodes.
Yeah.
Although there is heavy usage of fire extinguishers, so
Yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, they cut that. Justin wants to shoot them because they're trying to rush him, and then Gabe's outside the door just telling him like to hand the gun over to the band. He's like, wait, what? Why does that make sense at all? But like he doesn't have the full on scope of how to manipulate these people. It's like it doesn't matter if they have a gun; we can find many ways to kill them. So, but so he compromises by taking the bullets out of the gun and then handing the gun to them to make them feel safe. It was like, which that it would be a very, like I guess calming, manipulative thing where it's like, here's a gun, you now have the power, even though they absolutely don't, but you just make them think they do.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, they try fighting their way through Justin, so they just rush him, and then here's where Reese puts Justin in an armbar, implying he has some sort of MMA background.
Yeah.
Which he does talking about not just training, but he's been in MMA fights. The band gets the gun and the bullets, and then they barricade the door because they don't like. Was Darcy here at this point negotiating with them?
He's behind the door talking to them.
Okay, yeah, because I think what makes him go crazy is that he says like the cops have already left, and like all they want is the cops to show up and have the cops escort them out of this place, but that's never going to happen. So that's why they basically go crazy. But here, like they want out, but now because they know that they're marked for death, the band barricades themselves inside the green room. So now this is the only safe place that they're in because they got a gun and they got a guy held in an armbar. And then we cut to Darcy, and he says like, we'll do it here and stage up the road, implying that just gonna kill him and then stage it later on. Which I think, later on they mentioned something like, hey, yeah, just go ahead and shoot them, but you're going to have to dig those bullets out because, like, they need to, like, forensically make so that's why I go with your theory where it's, like, somehow they were, I thought they were going to have to end up burning the bodies to try to hide the evidence, but still have bodies.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, probably all that stuff will have to show up anyway. But anyways.
Well, I think this is where Darcy talks about, I need the red laces only.
Yeah.
Which means the killers, I'm assuming, are people who have or will commit murder for this group.
Or done violence against minorities for, the pleasure of the group or something like that.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that part of it, too. Yeah, that's right. They're supposed to be, like, racist, too. Yeah, I keep forgetting about Oh, right. No. Darcy says that. No, never mind.
There's something later on where they find a bat and they just talk about, like, it implied that they just, like, beat up a bunch of minorities just for like to prove that they're hey, look how strong we are or something like that.
Oh, no, Darcy uses the N-word like a couple times in the movie talking about dope.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because he's branding the heroin they're making with he calls it dope from the inner city, and it supplies those people are making it so he doesn't have to deal with it. But he doesn't use the term those people. He uses another one.
And then there's also the third mention of the hallway being blocked and being a fire hazard, which you think, again, that's going to be something, but
yeah,
not really. It's just,
I mean, that's what I would do. Like in this situation, it's like, yeah, just start lighting the place on fire. I mean, it's going to draw attention eventually, or in the confusion you could get out. Maybe you don't want to burn down the room you're in, but
yeah, well, I think the only thing that protects them is that all their drugs are underneath the green room.
Yeah.
Although weirdly they never like go into the other hatch of the green room and like, because like that's what I was thinking too. It was like, oh, they're just gonna burn the venue down to hide the evidence, but no, they have like a sacrificial house down the way that they're gonna use. And it's like, well, why are they doing that? It's like, oh, because these guys are literally sitting. Because there's also like $1 million on the table or something like that. So
yeah,
they don't want to destroy the $1 million either. So, we cut to the band start looking for like ways out through like the drop ceiling, but like they just keep hitting wood, so they can't get a way out. I think the drummer sees some light underneath the floorboard, so that he marks that out. Pat searches the dead girl but doesn't find a phone. So that they let Big Justin up, and like they empty out his pockets, and then like he hides that he has a phone, but when he pulls it, they make him pull it out, he like quickly just snaps it in half and throws it to them. They're like, no. And then the lights go out, and here where we have like pretty much the first close up of Amber, it's played by Imogene Poots. she lights a cigarette and hands it over to Justin. And here's where it's like the interesting thing where it's like, oh, why is she offering a cigarette to the bad guy? And then she's like, there's your tracking device. If the red cherry on the cigarette moves, shoot it. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Because it also has that thing of like, oh yeah, she's a Nazi too, so like she's helping them out. But it's like, no, like they killed her friend, so no, she's not their friends anymore. Then we cut to like the main stage, and Darcy tells like the crowd outside that the main breaker blew, and so they have to close the place down. Which he offers like their money back and says something like drinks for free from 2 to 4, which I don't know if 2 to 4 already passed or what's going on there, but
Yeah, it's something to demolify the crowd.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, and then they say free drinks from 2 to 4, and they're like, yay. And it's also where we find out that Darcy's main business is dealing drugs, because of course you're not making millions of dollars at this weird venue in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Catering to just Nazi punk heads, like that's such a division of a crowd that there's no way you can make money off
That's
of
a slim market share. Couldn't even pay the insurance on that place.
Here's Darcy negotiates with the band again. And he tries to trick him into a bad position. So they go to give Darcy the gun back because Darcy's like, it's an unregistered gun. Like, we really need that. And you don't know if that's true or not. I mean, maybe. But actually, I think it's supposed to be Big Justin's gun, so it probably doesn't matter. It's just a trick. Amber's like kind of like looking out like through the vent on the door as he opens it up to hand the gun back, and then she like at one angle sees like more feet, and she's like, no, pull it back in, and so they grab his arm and slash the shit out of it.
He hit his arm with machetes.
Yeah.
Like you think he's going to pull a stump back.
I mean, it almost does. Like his wrist is like halfway cut through, and it's like, yeah. And like he lays down for the movie, like he lays down for like 15 minutes of this movie, like he's dead. So it's like, well, he's done for. He's not going to be in the rest of this. But you imagine like, well, this is like the biggest star. He's got to show up again at some point. But for now, he's completely out of the movie almost. Yeah. Also, like Reese breaks Justin's arm, so he has him in the arm bar, and he just goes on and snaps it, so he can get up and help fight whoever's trying to get in. Which I think they get like a piece of the the drop ceiling, like those little metal things, and that's why it stabs some of the guys on the other side with that. And they grab like a light tube.
Yeah.
Justin with one arm goes for the box cutter. Also, he like choke slams Amber, but when he goes for the box cutter, Reese runs up and puts him in a choke and chokes him out. But then like he thinks he's like out, but then he starts coming to again, and then he just chokes him like extra long. Which here I thought is like, okay, now he's out, but no, he kills him, and to make sure that they killed him, Amber takes the box cutter and basically just like almost comically just splits his stomach open like with 2 E's. Like that's not how skin can easily be cut like that with a box cutter, but whatever. It's a very disturbing scene. It's like that shouldn't be happening. It's like his stomach just
that's not what heroes do.
Yeah, his stomach just opens like a zipper to a tunnel of black blood. It's like, oh Jesus Christ. But that's when they figured, like, yep, he's dead or he's out. I don't know if they actually don't confirm that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you open up his chest cavity, he's probably bled out pretty quickly.
Then we have more scenes of Darcy's making more plans to execute because they got to keep changing everything as everything doesn't go just the way they want it. The band breaks a hole through the floor and they find the drug lab. But they go down there, look for a way out, but they're still locked in because there's like just some brick locked up area outside that kind of almost looks like a well that is also locked up. Though, like, weirdly, like you never see anybody around that area ever.
Yeah.
Like, no one's guarding it. no one ever goes through it. It's just there. um, but they find some duct tape, so they duct tape Pat's arm back together, like just really wrap it down. It's like here, at least it won't dangle at the wrist anymore.
It has staunched the bleeding with duct tape.
So they prepare to make a run for it. They move out, but they're not greeted with resistance, so that's kind of eerie. It's like, oh great, what's gonna meet us? And that's when the pit bull shows up and kills Tiger, the drummer, or no, Tiger, the lead singer.
Yeah.
Just rips his throat out, and he pretty much just bleeds out almost immediately. Reese hops out a window, but he's just like beaten and stabbed by some skinhead, which is like, oh, is he dead? And it's like, technically not, but he basically bleeds out over the time. You just don't see it happen. So,
yeah.
Amber's getting her leg bitten by the dog, but Pat and Amber like scare it away by like putting the microphone next to the amp, and so it creates a feedback which scares the dog and it runs off. So I had that being the end of Act 2 because they try to get out and like 2 people are dead now, so like they're at their lowest again. So they retreat back to Act 3. They all retreat back to the green room. Reese's body is dragged away unconscious, but he's bleeding to death. And here Darcy says like, it'll take a long time, just let him bleed out. The cousin Daniel and another skinhead go in to finish them off. Here Daniel doesn't really know what's going on. Here you just think he's just a bad guy. But when they bust in the room, they don't just start immediately killing people. Daniel just starts talking to him like, hey, what's going on? and so Daniel knew Emily, the dead girl, because he was going to like run away with her because she's going to leave Worm and go with him. And they were both going to leave the skinhead movement. Maybe. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, because it seemed like they were keeping, you find out later they were keeping evidence in their car. So it's like, oh, okay, they were trying to get out of this lifestyle.
Yeah. Because there's a moment where they say, like, oh, she was trying to get out. And, like, does that mean the relationship or, like, the skinheads? And it's probably meant to be both, so.
Yeah, probably. It's a bad relationship either way.
So we come back to outside, and Darcy becomes suspicious of Daniel, so they search his car, and this is where they find Emily's stuff in the car. It's like, oh, they're lovebirds, and then here they find a bat that was a part of some like hate crime. And so here's where he gives compliments Gabe. It's like, your suspicions were right. It's like, it's gonna be a good day today because like this would have ended us.
Yeah, it's basically like a worm saved us. We didn't even know.
Oh yeah. The band and Daniel head back out. So this is again where like this movie basically becomes like a zombie movie because there's just like they send in different waves of neo-Nazis that are basically just different waves of zombies in a zombie movie, and then people are killed and they have to retreat back to the original position and like try to figure out something new. So
yeah.
Daniel goes for the shotgun, but then like a guy, like a big guy from before, because Darcy
bartender.
Oh, the bar, yeah. Darcy asks him, like, is there something we're forgetting? And so then they cut to like them. Daniel's going for the shotgun, but it isn't there. Which we do see it like a bit. We see it like from the dying perspective of Tiger as he's laying on the ground. He sees like a shotgun underneath the counter, but you think like, oh, is he going to grab for it? It's like, no, that's just for the audience to know.
Yeah.
And so as Daniel reaches for the shotgun, he finds out it's not there, and the bartender's in there and just shoots him right in the fucking head. So he's dead now. And then Amber is able to like block the shotguns so he can't aim at anybody. And then Pat like just hits him in the side of the neck with a machete and kills him. So now they have a shotgun. They move outside, but like I said, like the guys start immediately shooting at them, and so I think just Amber gets shot, and I think Pat gets shot, or no, Sam gets shot. She tries to shoot the dog, but like the dog ends up taking her down, killing her. So it's back to the green room for Amber and Pat. Amber wants there's a story that Pat was trying to tell about like when they were playing paintball against like some military veterans. But he was like telling the story. When he started telling the story, it was like, this isn't helping. So they just made him stop. So he tells the rest of the story where basically like, yeah, we couldn't fight them because they were too organized. And so we won one game by just doing an unexpected charge and screaming and doing something
It's
unexpected.
like
And we
being a
won.
berserker,
Yeah.
essentially.
But Pat says like that won't work in the real world, and then so Amber says, "Well, let's pretend it's not the real world." um, then we cut to Darcy gives Gabe red shoelaces and mentions like offhand about how like killing Cowcatcher with like a batch of bad drugs. But like this is a moment like this is a proud moment for Gabe. It's like, oh man, I'm getting like the red shoelaces, even though I don't think he technically killed anybody. He was just a part of the planning and organization of it. So
Yeah.
The skinheads prep another wave to go into the bar. They get in there but Amber and Pat have created a feedback loop, so the dog runs away because like the dog handler gives it like the dog like because it got shot by a shotgun, so it gives it like a dose of drugs, and it's like, oh, this will keep the dog alive for another hour. It's like, let him go out with like meat in his teeth or something like that. But now the dog runs away, and so it's just the guys with a couple of guns. They run into the green room, and Pat's they're just like yelling and like turns around. He has like war paint on his face, and he jumps down into the drug den and it's like starts making noise and banging stuff all over the place. Here the skinheads like knowingly like go like, this is a trap, right? It's like, yeah, we gotta do this. And there's like a fat guy and a skinny guy, and the skinny guy's always like saying, don't tell Darcy, like like don't tell Darcy we did this. We knowingly walked into a trap. It's like, don't worry, you're not gonna get out of this. So like one guy stays up in the green room, and you see Amber like sneaks out of the couch. She's like hiding under the couch covers and just sneaks out of it, which is pretty creepy. And so she slits the fat skinhead's throat. The remaining skinhead only has like 2 shots left in his shotgun. And then like she keeps like dangling dead people over the hole, and he keeps shooting at it, and then the body will drop, which is kind of humorous. Because the last one, she like dangles Emily, her friend, to get her her dead leg shot to empty the guy's shotgun. So Pat gets the shotgun because like the gun drops out of the one guy's coat pocket, and so he goes to get that because that's a gun with bullets in it. So he leaves the shotgun, but Pat has shotgun shells, but he only has one arm, so he tries loading it up and shooting that guy, but they end up struggling with over the shotgun. Then Amber just walks up behind and shoots the guy in the throat and then the head, so he's dead. So they make their way back to the green room, where Gabe is like dressed for like cleanup. Like he has like a smock on and he's like power washing stuff because like, I gotta get a head start on this. But now they just have to drop on him because he doesn't have any weapons. He's just they got all the guns. And so he's basically just like consigned to like, well, I guess I'll die. But he asks like, I want to go to jail. So that's like his only bargain is like, well, let me go to jail. You don't have to kill me. Then we cut to them leaving. It's morning. They make their way outside with Gabe as their hostage. They start walking through the woods because they don't have any keys to the car. Nobody knows how to hotwire the car, which the only car left is Daniel's. They hear gunshots, and so which you presume is just the dead bodies of the band being shot for their cover up. So here they let Gabe go. I forget what they tell him, but they just let him go. And then Pat and Amber like
He's supposed to go get the police because it's like
okay.
15 miles to the next hippie village or whatever.
Pat and Amber go to ambush the skinheads. They hold up the 2 skinheads there. They go to the front of the house where like the dead bodies of the band are staged as trespassers stealing gas. Darcy is there as well. Amber shoots like the dog trainer guy just as he starts talking. It's just like, shut up. Which that's a good way to keep everyone silent. It's like, remember, whoever talks dies. Which they kind of get that point because I think, because like Darcy like barely says anything. Like he's like not in a position to like negotiate. So that's where his best move is to just turn around and walk away swiftly, and then like he pulls out the gun when they can't see it, but then there ends up in a shootout, and so they shoot both those guys. So now all the skinheads are dead that we know of. I forget. There's like some dialogue or like Pat's like, I thought I was going to like. Somebody asked like, "What are you gonna do?" And he says, "I thought I was going to ruin the crime scene." And then Amber says, "I thought I'd leave a new one." It's a fun
Oh,
bit of
then
dialogue.
forget the dog shows up.
Yeah, I mean that's a bit later. I kind of jumped over that dialogue, but yeah. So yeah, they kill all the skinheads. Then we cut to a scene where Gabe asks, like, the fault, the farm next door or whatever that's 15 miles away to call the police.
Yeah.
Then we get a shot of the band Cowcatcher, like all dead from drugs, that bad drug, except for Worm, who's like eating cereal and like seems unconcerned, or maybe he is concerned because he's eating really fast.
It's kind of a weird. Yeah, you don't know what exactly this means.
Then the injured dog, which is it was kind of left around as like, what do you call that? A Chekhov's loose attack dog, where it's
Yeah.
like they keep cutting to it. It's like, this is gonna kill somebody here, and like it just casually walks up, and like they know the dog's dangerous, so it'll kill people, and they just pull the triggers on their guns, but they don't have any bullets left. But then the dog just kind of casually moves past them, and just goes lays down with the dead dog trainer.
Yeah.
Um,
Presumably to die as well.
yeah. And then we got a shot of Pat and Amber, and finally, because because the first time they charged out when they get the first dog kills Tiger, and then Reese gets killed. That's where everyone like says their Desert Island Band before they leave the green room, which some of it's unexpected because I think like Reese is because he's like the big badass. He's like Prince. And I think Amber's like Madonna or something like that. And there was a bunch of like unexpected stuff. I think Tiger is like, no, it's still a minor threat for me. So that never changes. But at that point, Pat still doesn't have one. So here Pat says like, oh, I know what my Desert Island Band is. And then Amber responds with, tell somebody who gives a shit. And that's the end of the movie. Which it ends on a Creedence Clearwater song, which I guess that's supposed to be the clue that that's his Desert Island Band.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I got out of it.
But yeah, for your a pretty good swift movie for your kind of weird drama horror movie. Indie drama horror movie, so it's a pretty good movie. I mean, you got to be in a mood. You're not gonna feel good after watching it, but it's a good swift movie. So
Yeah, this isn't one to like sit around the family, and eat dinner and watch this. It's not going to make you feel good about life, but
a well executed indie movie. So
yeah, it's like I said, it took me back to like Sam Peckinpah, like Straw Dogs, like those kind of movies.
It's got a cool poster too, where he's like, the Pat character is kind of, it's a green color, almost like Matrix looking hallway, and he's got a machete, and he's kind of like holding it in a weird way, which I guess they based it off the cover of the London Falling, where the guy's like beating the guitar into the ground.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah, that's Green Room, just a nifty, and it's on Max, so if you got that, you can watch it. It's only an hour and a half, and just a nifty horror movie. And I guess check out Blue Ruin. I hear it's good. I think it's maybe in the same place. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you can watch. I think Blue Ruins like it's one of those streaming services where you can watch ads and watch it. You don't have to pay for it.
So, because I might have to check that out. I'm not sure.
It's kind of fun. I watched it a couple of years ago.
Well, what made you want to see that, or just a happenstance?
It was just it just looked interesting.
Oh, okay.
It was like, oh, it's like a, kind of a revenge story, sort of set in the American, wilderness, and it's like, oh, what's this about? It's a little more sarcastic and funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the trailer doesn't make it seem sarcastic and funny, but yeah, it's supposed to be like, because like people are saying like, oh, you're making a trilogy of like colors in the title. He's like, no, but he considers it part of his inept protagonist trilogy, where it's like, yeah, in Blue Ruin, this guy's trying to get revenge, but he doesn't know how to get revenge, and here they're like, these people are being cornered like almost by a military neo-Nazi like militia. It's like, how do we fight back when we don't know how? It's like, well, poorly.
Yeah, that is randomly.
You're a punk band, and their guys have been planning crimes for their whole lives. Well, not the young guys. The young guys are all stupid. So,
Yeah, this is vicious sadists.
well, we're sending a probe into space containing the supercut of scenes from the Imperfect Collection. That is the Verhoeven Effect. So, Nathan, what one scene from this movie are we sending into space?
When they're talking to the Portland radio guy about how they don't have an internet presence or social media presence, and they like to put stuff on vinyl, and they don't do anything conventionally. It's like, yes, they're not prepared for anything. Just violence and nothing.
Success.
Yeah.
Failure. They're not prepared for that either.
No, nobody's prepared for failure, but it always looms large in our lives.
All right, well, if you liked our podcast, and how couldn't you? You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. Whatever platform you're listening on this on, you can rate us whatever you want. But remember, the highest rating is the only thing the algorithm listens to. So remember, you control the algorithm doesn't control you. We have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99, and cancel anytime. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. And you can find t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.